All right, so hello everyone and welcome. I hope that everyone's having a great Friday. So today is our second lesson of the AT&T Digital Citizenship Training for Youth. So today we're going to be discussing connecting with kindness online relationships. So that's the topic of today. I'm just going to quickly read you through the description of today's session. So in this session, we're going to be learning how to create healthy relationships online and offline. The session will explore the dynamics of digital connections and teach us effective communication strategies for fostering meaningful and fulfilling relationships in the virtual world. So that is today's discussion. So I'm going to start off by sharing a video, and this is the video that we're going to start off with, and then we're going to continue on to discuss some handouts and have some conversations about those. So let's get started.
No way. Looks like you're having a blast. Does the tropical lizard you borrowed that dress from also have a matching bag you can use? Tongue sticking out emoji, XOXO, chameleon sticker.
Hold up. Skylar,
What's up?
you literally told me you loved my shirt last week, and it was the same color as this.
I do love that shirt.
But you basically just said she looks like a tropical lizard.
Oh yeah, that's just an inside joke Liv and I have. You know I love her. And lizards for that matter.
Oh, huh. I guess I thought you were making fun of her, and by extension, my fashion choices.
I'm sorry it came across that way, but I'm glad we're talking about it in person so I can clear it up. Okay, online communication can clearly be a little tricky. Written words don't always convey emotions, and sometimes not writing something can also be taken the wrong way.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, are there things we can do when we're online to make sure we're connecting with kindness?
That's such an important question. It's just so easy to post things, comment, tag people. You can get caught up in the moment and forget to think about how your actions might impact others. Oh, related, I'd love to get your thoughts on something. A bunch of us from Theater Club had made plans for a movie night sleepover. We made the plan a few weeks ago, and at the last minute, one person couldn't make it.
So you moved the date.
Well, no. I mean, I suggested it in the group chat, and a few people agreed, but the friend who couldn't go said it was fine since she'd come the next time.
That's what she texted, but I'm guessing that's not how she was feeling. Hold up. This reminds me of a video I was watching earlier today.
I'm always with my friends, but when I'm not with them, I'm always talking to them on social media.
It's a lot easier to just meet up with people wherever you are as long as you have a way to connect with them. So whether that be texting or Snapchatting or calling them, it's really easy instead of having to communicate through your parents.
I would say it's very normal in today's world to be hanging out with people that you're close to or even not so close to and have moments where you're both just silently.
I'm sure everyone meant well, but if people took a second to think about how they'd feel if they swapped places with her, they might have done things a little differently.
Looking back, I wish I'd advocated more loudly for changing the date or checked in with her one-on-one outside the group text to see if she was really okay with us having the sleepover.
Or maybe even talk to her face to face to see if her words matched the way she looked and sounded.
Yeah, totally. It's a good reminder that some things are better dealt with in person.
And believe me, I've been in similar situations, being left out and leaving people out. And I wish I'd acted differently. But these experiences have also taught me some things about being kind online, like think before you post, considering how it might impact others. Try checking in with someone one-on-one. Group chats can make it difficult for people to share how they really feel. For some conversations, consider whether it's better to talk face-to-face rather than over text.
Those are super helpful tips, and I totally agree. Like having this conversation face-to-face, let me know that you're paying attention and care.
Yeah, being able to hear my voice and see my face and body language helps give meaning to the words I'm saying. Unlike when I pour my heart out to you over text and you take like an hour to respond with a gif of a cat falling off a table.
That GIF is good for almost any occasion. Side note, is it GIF or GIF? Always a mystery. Anyway, not being able to see or hear someone makes it easy to misinterpret text messages and online posts. I mean, a winky emoji alone can be interpreted several hundred ways. Okay, exaggeration, but you get the point.
I know, and then there are the little things that can get so misinterpreted. Like, don't even get me started on texting in all caps. I thought it showed how excited I was about something, but it really means that I'm shouting. And can we talk about gaming? People do and say things in these multiplayer games that they would never dare to do in real life. I guess because they're hiding behind a screen name and an avatar. Last week, I was having my best game ever. And another player ruined it on purpose just because they had already lost. I was so mad.
Ugh, that's annoying. If only everyone could act with a bit more empathy online. Just ask yourself, how would you feel if someone did the same thing to you? Why ruin someone else's happiness? Like, remember that one time people made snarky comments on the pic I posted of the s'mores bear I made with my grandpa on our camping trip? That really got me down.
Yeah, I remember seeing those comments. But for what it's worth, that s'mores sculpture was beyond creative. And tasty, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it totally was. And I do remember you wrote a positive comment that helped drown out the negative ones.
Online communication is complicated. Between signals that can be interpreted in many different ways and the lack of social cues and context, it can feel like you're on a roller coaster.
Not to mention, being behind a screen sometimes makes people say or do things they wouldn't say in person, which can often be mean.
Okay, guys, so this is one of the questions that the video is asking for us to reflect on, and it doesn't have to be a long discussion, but the question is, have you ever experienced a misunderstanding or unkindness online? And what do you do, or sorry, what do you wish you had done differently? So I'll give everyone a second to think about this. So the question again is, have you ever experienced a misunderstanding or some sort of like unkindness or bullying online? I have to think about this myself too. Let me think here.
I experience
Yeah.
it like mostly every single day when I
Really?
be play
Why? Like,
when I be playing video games. Because
okay,
yeah,
right.
everyone's toxic, so
Yeah.
but it makes it kind of fun because you
Yeah, yeah. I think as long as it's not like being taken too seriously,
yeah.
it's not like actually to like hurt someone. I think that that's the most important thing. Great. Thanks for sharing that, Brandon. Has anyone else ever experienced some sort of, misunderstanding or unkindness online before? Trying to think if I have an example. Yeah, Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, I've had like I posed a question online on like a forum website, like those websites like Reddit and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I
Quora.
remember, yeah, I remember, it must have been the way that I worded the question. I don't really remember the situation around it, but I like asked the question on one of these services, and one of the replies was like so mean and nasty to me. It was like, how do you not
Oh,
understand this? Like they're basically like making like saying like you should understand
mhm,
this. How do you not
mhm,
understand this? And I just
mhm.
remember reading that and I was like, what the heck? Like what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jonathan. Yeah, for sure. I think that those like forums and stuff can definitely be like a little toxic and stuff sometimes. And there's a lot of like, not so nice comments that people make for sure. But yeah, I think as long as we don't take it too seriously, I feel like people that take the time to make like not so nice comments, I think is very much a reflection of themselves. It's not a reflection of you or us. It's a reflection of them and clearly what they're going through that they feel like they need to kind of respond like that. So yeah, I'm glad that you didn't take it too seriously though, Jonathan. That's good. All right, so let's move on to continue the video.
To make sure we're connecting with kindness, it's important to think before you post, considering how it might impact others.
Look at situations from other people's perspectives.
Pause and process your feelings before responding to something that upset you. And ask yourself whether talking to the person face to face might be the better way to go.
Send positive and kind comments to support others.
Keep up with texting etiquette.
Yes, and try to follow norms, like not using all caps unless you really, really need to.
Insert cat falling off table gify here.
It's not the same when you say it. You really need to see the picture.
Oh, Skylar, I guess animal gifts are how you connect with kindness.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the video. I'm just going to go on to share some of the handouts that we have, and these are kind of, these are kind of like activities that we're going to go through just like last week and discuss a couple things together and just share our thoughts and stuff. So just give me one quick second here and I will start sharing that. All right, let's open this. Okay, so I believe that we did discuss this last week, so I'm not going to go too much into detail about what the I-curve read is. Just give me one sec, sorry guys. I have to just quickly fix something. Sometimes it's annoying when you're sharing on Zoom, you can't like switch tabs. There we go. All right, so this is one of the handouts that we're going to go through. So this is, again, like the video we're discussing, connecting with kindness. So I'm just going to kind of read these through, and I'm going to also read through some of the reflection questions, and I want to give you guys a couple minutes to think about them and to share your thoughts. So our devices help us communicate and stay connected with our friends, as we all know. And in the video, Skylar and David explored the benefits and the challenges of communicating with others online. So Skylar shared her experience that she had in a group chat, and David kind of helped her think about strategies to being kind online. So in this activity that we're going to be doing together, we're going to reflect on how we can communicate with other people online, and we're going to think of strategies that we can use to make sure that we're connecting with kindness. So step one, we're going to reflect. So we're going to think carefully about the questions below, which I'm about to say out loud, and we're going to consider our answers and how they apply to our own life. So the first one is we want to think about ways that we use technology to connect with others. So just general ways that we connect. The second question is, what is empathy, and what do you think acting with empathy means, and how would it look? And then the third part of this question is to think of ways that you can be kind when you communicate with others online, and to create a list of ideas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be leaving these questions up. And I want to give you guys a couple minutes to just think and brainstorm and see if you can come up with anything, and then we'll continue and have a little chat about it. So I'm just going to pause here. All right. All right, so let's start off by listing the ways that we use technology to connect with others. So does anyone want to maybe give a suggestion of different ways or different types of technology that you use to connect?
I use Instagram messages, to text with friends or with family. Discord, which is
Okay, nice.
like I don't know, like it's like a video call app where you could
Okay.
text and join different channels and stuff. Um, Reddit, like how Jonathan was saying, I do use Reddit here and there. Um, I
That's
don't know, I
great.
don't really use any other ones.
Yeah, those are the
Snapchat,
main
I don't
ones.
really, who uses Snapchat nowadays?
I
But
still do.
oh, sorry, there we go.
I'm kidding. No, I actually do though. I love Snapchat. That's one of the things I was gonna add is I do love using Snapchat. Like I'm always, snapping like my friends or my family, not really my family, but maybe my cousins and stuff sometimes. Because I find it, nice and easy
Mhm.
to just like take a picture of what you're doing or where you're at and send it to them via Snapchat. So that's one of the ways I do. But yeah, thank you, Brandon, again for sharing those. Those are great ones. So you said Instagram, Discord, Reddit. I said Snapchat. I also use like FaceTime sometimes. That's a way that I can like FaceTime like my Nana or different family members. I also use Zoom sometimes just
Yeah,
like,
I was about to say, how could we forget Zoom?
how could we forget Zoom? Exactly. Zoom's an OG for sure. And like I use that to like talk to like my family in Peru or my family in Lebanon, so overseas. Yeah. So I think those are really great platforms to use to connect. Does anyone else have any thoughts or anything that they want to add to that? Yeah, Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, you guys basically talked about it. Like the main thing I was gonna say is like the number one thing that we use to connect with each other is just social media in general. And that's what you guys talked about, all the social media apps like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those, Reddit. So yeah, that's mainly like a way that I've used like technology to connect with others. Also like emailing others, just all those
Yeah.
sources that are on the internet. Just there's so many ways to communicate with each other.
That's exactly it, Jonathan. Yeah, there's so many ways, and email is a big one too. I didn't even think of, but that's so true. Just like sending each other emails, like pictures or sharing different like resources or articles. Like I always have one of my aunts who like always sends us like news posts and like recent articles and publications that have came out. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways for sure, and a lot of it is through social media. Absolutely. Yeah, Karen, go ahead.
I wanted to add, I use like WhatsApp to connect with
Yeah.
my family in Mexico. Like I
Mhm.
call them through there or like I just text them.
That's a very good one. Yeah, I'm surprised we actually forgot about WhatsApp for sure. WhatsApp is great. And I think like, yeah, at this point, there's so many people that use WhatsApp and like all over the
Mhm.
world too. I just want to quickly add as well what Maria put in the chat box, which is social media, apps, websites, and of course we need Wi-Fi. Yeah, that's a great point, is a lot of these things rely on Wi-Fi. So yeah, for sure. Wi-Fi is super important to kind of help keep us connected in lots of different ways, lots of different platforms. That's great. Okay, thanks for all that brainstorming, guys. The next part of our question that I want you guys to reflect on is what is empathy and what do you think acting with empathy means? And how would that look? So I don't expect you guys to give me a textbook definition of what empathy is, but just kind of in your perspective, in your experience, like what does it mean to be empathetic to someone? So I'll start off kind of what I think. When I think empathy, I think of like really trying to put yourself in someone else's shoes, really trying to visualize what it feels like to be that person and what they're going through, kind of put yourself in their situation. And I think that that is the best kind of way to approach being empathetic. And I think that empathy is like super, super important in every aspect of our life to just try to be kind to others, empathetic, and try to think about what they're going through. And to also be aware that a lot of people are going through things that we don't necessarily know, we're not aware of, right? So some people are sensitive to certain things. So I think just being empathetic and trying to be conscious about that is very important. Does anyone have any thoughts on what empathy means to them or how empathy looks like? It could even be like an action. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I'll go.
Yeah.
How I see empathy is like yeah, like how you're saying, somewhere like seeing, putting yourself in the other person's shoes,
Mhm.
or try to see where the person's coming from, because we all live different lives, so they
Right.
might have a different perspective from your perspective of life.
Exactly.
Ways that you could act with empathy, like during online, is like, I know a lot of people tend to judge each other when they don't agree on like Instagram comments and stuff. So instead of doing that, maybe like just try to see where the person's coming from and be like, oh, I know I don't agree with what you're
Perspective.
saying.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I want you to I have this point of view, and instead
Mhm.
of just judging the other person on like how they look on their page or something else.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brandon. And kind of like, being okay, like agreeing to disagree on certain things. Like not everyone has to have the same opinion as you or be on the same page, but being okay with that and kind of respecting that everyone has their thoughts on different things and everyone expresses themselves differently, especially online. So yeah, that's a great point, Brandon. Thanks for sharing that. Rihanna, go ahead.
I think empathy is like more than just like being like taking pity on someone, but more than actually helping them and like
Mhm.
choosing to like, feel the same feelings that they're feeling. So
Mhm.
yeah.
That's a great point. I love that point that you said is like not like kind of pitying them, like not being like, oh, like it's so sad. That's like not really caring. It's like actually, like you said, Rihanna, like actually trying to like actively try to understand what they're going through and where their perspective is coming from, I think is very important. And it takes a little bit more work, but I think that that's what really makes you like a good, like kind person that's empathetic. And I think that's also a big difference between like having sympathy and having empathy is that kind of differentiates it is putting yourself in their shoes and in their position and trying to understand them better. So that's a great point, Rihanna. Thank you for that. Thanks for sharing. So the last part of this page is we want to reflect on the ways that we can be kind when we communicate with other people online. And I want to kind of generate some ideas with you guys. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can try to keep kindness online, be good to people, avoid bullying, and, develop good relationships. So I'll give you guys a second to maybe brainstorm. I'll give one suggestion that kind of comes to mind is this is a pretty simple one, but just not making rude comments to people or not like trying to attack people online or like Brandon was kind of saying before is that if someone has a different opinion than you, rather than like attacking them for it or putting them down for it, being okay with the fact that they can have their own opinion. You don't have to agree with them, but it's not worth kind of going and putting the effort to, make a nasty comment or really negatively affect them because we really don't know how they're going to perceive what you said to them, even though to you it's like, oh, it's just a comment. To them, like that could really hurt somebody. So I think just trying to avoid making negative comments is a really good step to take. I feel like all of us here, I don't imagine any of you guys to be the type that bullies online, but I think it's still good to think about that we don't need to be those type of people that feel the need to make nasty comments and stuff. So that's one way. Does anyone else have any thoughts or any ideas? Yeah, Jamal, go ahead.
Um, I was I would say like if you're communicating, make sure you speak clearly and
Mm-hmm.
straight to the point so that they know what you're trying to say. Um, make sure you
Mm-hmm.
have respect on both sides.
Yeah.
Be open to criticism. Like if you know you're in the wrong, then be able to admit that you are in the wrong. Um,
Yeah.
I would say like try to if it's like something serious, talk about the serious topic first. Don't like try to ease it in. Because it actually happened to me before. Like we was having a normal conversation, and he hits me with, "By the way, Derek's in the hospital." I'm like, "Wait, why didn't you tell me that first?" And so,
Yeah.
um, that's basically what I came up with.
Yeah, I love those points, Jamal. I love the point that you said about being open to like criticism. And I think that that's where things can get tricky sometimes because instead of like some people, when they're faced with criticism, they have like a wall up and they get super defensive. But I think it's important to, when someone makes a comment or says something, to kind of be open to it and at least consider it and don't take it so personally, but rather try to kind of like understand where they're coming from rather than it being like a personal attack. Because I think that sometimes, we can feel that way, but it's good to just like try to not get to that point. But those are really great points that you said, Jamal. So thank you so much for sharing that. Jonathan, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like I don't want to say it's like a cheap like explanation, but a
Mhm.
way that you could communicate like being kind is actually something we already talked about, which is like learn to be empathetic, like learn empathy and stuff like that. Like learn what empathy is because yeah, like I just mainly like just being able to put yourself in other shoes or just looking others'
Mhm.
perspectives because I've seen a lot online, especially like there's like a space online where a lot of people like they like to debate like serious topics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the majority of like those like types of debates always like just it just like turns into like just complete like attacks on each other, just like on their
Yeah.
person and on their character.
Yeah.
It's
Sure.
like I think it's called like ad hominem attacks. It's like an illogical fallacy that a lot of those people use. So they just attack a person instead of like attacking what they're saying. And yeah,
Right.
I've seen that just constantly. So just I guess like avoid using those and just practice empathy as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that point, Jonathan. I think it's kind of like what we touched on before is like a lot of people will, like, let's say there's a debate, like you said, like they're on a platform, they're trying to debate a topic that's, let's say, very controversial. Some people, when someone says something, they all of a sudden they turn it around and make it like a personal attack rather than, like you said, attacking or like rebuttaling like the actual thing that they said. So I think that, yeah, sometimes like those platforms can be tricky. And I feel like most of the time there's some nasty conversations going on. So I think avoiding that obviously would be good. But like you said as well, Jonathan is like actively trying to practice being empathetic because we can all say that we have empathy, but when it really comes down to it, like what are we doing to like actually show someone that we are empathetic and that we are kind and that we're not like, we're not negative, we're not trying to negatively affect their day or their lives or anything like that. So yeah, that's a really good point for sure. It seems pretty straightforward, like it seems like common sense, but realistically, like I think we've all been in situations where it's like we wanted to make mean comments, or maybe we have. And in that moment, you have to kind of be like, no, like it's not worth it. I don't need to kind of like get to this point that I have to like say something rude to someone else. We don't need to lower ourselves like that, right? So great points, guys. Thanks so much for your thoughts. Okay, so for the second page of this handout, we're going to be discussing practicing being kind online. So in the video that we watched, David and Skylar shared some tips on connecting with kindness. So we're going to be trying to answer the prompts below that you guys can see on the screen now to discuss different strategies that we can use to be kind online. So the first part of this section is I can be kind when texting by, and then there's a couple points. So you can give examples, you can give different thoughts that you have. The next part is when using social media, I can practice being kind by the points. So again, like I mentioned before, these can be intertwined because a lot of the time texting is through social media, but I would love for you guys to share your thoughts on different ways that you can be kind. And even though this might seem like super common sense, it really does like make a difference. So let's start off with Jonathan. I think that Jonathan, you had a thought to share.
Yeah, I could be kind by like when texting by I would say it's quite I was like looking to a bunch of things to like to like discuss because it is like you said it's quite a like a simple topic, but I guess like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I guess like just using like good like using like good language, not being mean in your language, saying like stuff like thank you and like just being like understanding in the way that you're texting instead of like
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of maybe because sometimes people could like misconstrue what you're actually trying to say to them. Like
Mhm.
there's no emotion in a text. Like maybe they think, oh, you're screaming at me. Like how the video explained, like having it in all caps could be bad. So yeah, stuff
Mhm.
yeah, so like stuff like that. I would say just like use your words, like I guess like be more kinder in your words because some people may
Yeah.
read what you say in a different way. Yeah.
That's a very good point, Jonathan. Exactly. And it's like, even like, putting things in capital letters, like, even if you don't necessarily mean it in a rude way, it can come off as that. Someone can interpret it as like, oh, you're yelling at them. Or like, let's say you write a sentence and you have like a period at the end. It's kind of like, it comes off as being like very dry or like very like not, straight to the point. So that can also come off as being unkind. What's hard about texting, Jonathan, that you kind of touched on is that like there's no emotions. So it's really hard to know sometimes what someone is trying to like tell you and in what way. Because, for example, when we're talking in person, you can see my facial expressions, you can see my body movements, you can see my eye contact. So me telling you something in person versus online, I could come off completely different. So I think a big part of it is being very conscious of how someone may interpret what you're saying and trying to kind of like articulate it in a way that comes off as being kind and being nice and being positive. It's just little things that we can do, little things, even like adding emojis, as simple as that may sound. Sometimes like I just like add a little smiley face. I'm sure we all do this just to make what I'm saying not seem so like rude, you could say, and to make it seem more kind. But doing things like that really does make a difference for how the other person interprets what you're saying. So that's a great point, Jonathan. Thank you for sharing that. I want to share as well what Karen said in the chat. So she said, I can be kind when texting by considering the other person's feelings. Yeah, that's a very good point. That kind of ties back to what we were saying now, is thinking about how they're going to be interpreting what you're saying. Because obviously in your mind, you have an idea of what you're trying to say, but a lot of the time we don't think about how we're portraying that information, how we're delivering that information. We have to try to deliver it in a way that comes off as being kind. And then Ashish Panda also said to always be polite when responding. That's a very good point. Yeah, I love that. To always be polite. And I think a lot of people don't realize how important it is to be polite, but it really is, I think, a reflection of ourselves. And I think that it's super, super important to be polite no matter who you're talking to, even if it's your best friend that you talk to every day. I think that having a certain level of respect and having a certain level of politeness, I think, is very important. So that's a very good point, Ashish. Thank you for sharing that. And I'll pass it along to Rihanna if you have any thoughts that you want to share.
I was just gonna say like you have to like fix like the tone that you're writing the message in, because sometimes it can sound like sarcastic and like it could be like miscommunicated to the person you're
Yeah.
sending it to. So like maybe like read it out by yourself before you send it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I like that, reading it out to yourself before you send it, or just reading it over again, just to make sure that, okay, like, is this sounding okay right now before you actually press send? That's a great point. And I like the sarcasm part. That's very true for sure. Jonathan, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I had some thoughts after everything you guys said because it's actually, especially with the like sending emojis to make your text seem nice. Because I had a situation like this, like just the other day,
Oh
where
yeah.
my mother had texted me telling me to throw out the trash or something, and I had responded with a really dry message saying I already did with a period, and she thought I was being like super, like she thought I was being sarcastic and mean to her. So she came into my room and she's like, "Why are you being mean on the text? Like, what's wrong?" I was just trying to ask you, and I was like, "Oh no, I had to try to explain to her. I was like, no, I was actually
Yeah.
just trying to be like, I already did it. I wasn't trying to be mad or anything. But maybe if I added
Right.
like a happy face emoji, like you said, or maybe like read it before
Yeah.
I sent it out, it could have been could have been like reached a different way because she saw it as like sarcasm where I did not mean that at all. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really, really good example, Jonathan. Exactly. So that kind of shows how like you delivering a message, and for you it was like, oh, you're just literally just telling her you already did it. It's not that deep. But to her, she was like, oh my God, like Jonathan's like throwing shade right now, or like he's not happy about something. So yeah, that's a very good point, Jonathan. Thank you for sharing that.
I
Does
had
anyone
another
else?
remark.
Yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
Uh, like a way that you could show kindness on social media is like going out of your way and helping someone out.
Yeah,
For example,
love
like if they
that.
have a question, you go out of your way to research that question and
Hmm.
answer it for them.
That's a
And
great point. Yeah.
another thing, with Jonathan, what Jonathan was saying, I feel like also with like emojis, or you could send like a GIF of like maybe like
Hmm.
someone throwing away the trash because it makes it more like kinder, it makes it more funnier because they're seeing like animation of like maybe like
Yeah.
SpongeBob throwing away the trash. or something like
Yeah.
that. So it
Yeah, I
just,
love that.
yeah,
That's a
so it
really
like
great
perceives it like
idea.
more kinder and stuff.
Yeah, I love that idea of like throwing in like a GIF or GIF or whatever you call them, just to kind of make it a little bit more like lighthearted and stuff. I love that. That's a great point. And I also really like the idea, Brandon, like you said, is like going on different like forums, for example, and like helping people like answer questions. I always, whenever I go on a forum, if I have an issue with anything and I find the answer, I'm always like, okay, shout out to that person because they're really helping me out. So I think that it's definitely nice to kind of help people with their issues and stuff online. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Rihanna.
Something I do is like whenever I text someone like after like a long time or like I'm starting a conversation, I like first ask like how are you and then I continue with the text and it
Mhm.
kind of shows like the kindness and how like you're just trying to like start a polite conversation.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that because I feel like when you're starting off, especially if you haven't spoken to someone in a long time and it's like you get right to the point, that can kind of come off as like you're just texting them to use them for something or to ask them something, like not really to actually check in and see how they're doing. So I really love that point, Rihanna. Absolutely. That's a great idea for sure. Okay, well, thanks for all your thoughts, guys. You guys are awesome. A lot of really great ideas. All right, and we're just going to go to the last question here, which is thinking about a time when we saw someone being unkind towards another person and how you would handle that situation now. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of seconds to think about this. If you haven't experienced that, you're welcome to think about like theoretically, like in theory, what you would do if that were to happen. So you're welcome to share your thoughts on that as well. So I'll just give you guys a second. I'll give an example that kind of like comes to mind is that sometimes, like we touched on before, you see a lot of like negative comments under, let's say, like an Instagram post or under something in social media. And what I've noticed is, let's say someone makes a negative comment on something or like says something super like shady or like not really nice, then I'll see under it the reply to that comment. There's so many people like defending the person that posted or saying things to kind of like rebuttal that or trying to really spread positivity like to kind of counter like that really negative comment. So that's something that I've noticed and I feel like there's a lot of positivity online. As much as there's a lot of negativity, there's a lot of really positive people, really good people that are there to support you and that really like don't want to spread like hate and negativity and all of that. So I think that's also really nice to see sometimes is people standing up for other people. Does anyone have any thoughts or any examples or anything that they experienced like this online?
Um, well, I mean, I play video games a lot, so I kind of
Mhm.
experience toxicity a lot, where people be
Yeah.
talking smack to other people because they're not
Mhm.
playing good in the game.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like, I would say like, maybe like, I won't say like talking back to them and talking smack about them, because you're just putting fuel onto the
yeah.
fire.
You're
So
feeling
I
the
would say like
fire.
maybe like. Just tell the guy to like just mute him and like just ignore him,
Yeah.
or because like in the game you can't really like because everyone could hear you, so
Mhm.
um you can't say like you can't talk back or you can't say
Oh,
something
okay.
because then they're gonna start talking smack to you and then you're gonna start
Mhm.
getting mad and then you're gonna start talking smack to them.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
makes
feel
sense.
like I would just say like just ignore him or something.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brandon. Exactly. And I think with like a lot of these video games, it's like people know it's not personal. I think it's just part of playing video games. But I think like let's say someone is like being like kind of attacked online or people are saying rude things, even just like messaging that person privately and just being like, don't worry about what they're saying, don't take it personally. That's a reflection of who they are, not who you are, like that type of thing. Just giving them some support, making them feel like they're not alone, I think is always nice and always helps. But yeah, really great points, Brandon. Thanks for sharing that for sure. I wouldn't know. I've actually like never played video games, but I'm sure there's a lot of those type of people for sure. Okay, I'm just going to quickly share as well before I pass it along to Rihanna. Ashish said in the meeting chat that he never experienced it, but he would be nice to them and tell them to block and ignore them since they aren't being respectful to you. Yeah, that's a very good point. Kind of like what I just mentioned as well, which is, tell them not to worry about it, tell them to block them, to ignore it, to not take it personally. That's a very good point, Ashish. Yeah, I love that. And I'll pass it on to Rihanna if you have any other thoughts.
Yeah, like just going off of what you said, like there's like a really big group chat in my for like all grade 11s in my grade, and I noticed like some people were being like kind of rude to my friend. So I just texted her like privately and like told her like don't worry about it, and you
Yeah.
can just ignore them, like their opinions don't matter.
Yeah, I love that, Rihanna. That's a really great example. Exactly. Is that sometimes even just like you taking like 3 minutes out of your day to just reach out to your friend and tell her, like, by the way, like, don't even worry about this, don't take it personally, whatever. That can mean a lot to someone, right? As simple as it is to do, she might have been feeling like really down that she's and feeling like she's kind of being attacked on that group chat, you could say. So it's nice when you show that you have like support for your friend and that they're there for you. I think that that's super important and really nice to do. And it shows empathy, it shows kindness. And obviously we're all trying to be better, kinder people. So I think that that's really important. So thank you, Rihanna. That's great. All right. Okay, and now just to wrap up for today's lesson, we're going to be just discussing some tips for connecting with kindness. So the first tip that we see here is to think before you post. So that's a big one. It's to think about it, not to just post spontaneously, to really think about what you're posting, think about how it can affect other people and if it can cause any like negative like repercussions. So that's very important. Also to consider other perspectives. So that's a big one. So just because you have an opinion doesn't mean that is the opinion and that everyone else is wrong, but to really try to be open and to respect that other people can have different opinions than you. And it's okay. You're allowed to disagree on things, but as long as we keep things respectful, that's the most important thing. The next point is to meet in person when having difficult conversations. So I think this is important. This kind of ties back to what we were saying earlier, which is that sometimes online, it's hard to tell really how someone's feeling or what the message is that they're trying to give off to you. It can come off as different than it actually is. So I think that when you connect with someone in person, you can really see through their facial expressions, through their body movements, through everything, through their eye contact, you can really see how they're feeling and what they're trying to tell you. So I think that that's also very important as well. The second last point is post positive and kind comments. So obviously we all want to avoid posting things that are, discriminatory or things that are negative or things that would hurt people. I know that all of you guys are great people. I know that you would never do that, but I think it's a great reminder to not post mean things online and to try to keep things positive, keep things kind. And obviously we all know that that's a reflection of ourselves. So posting negative things or trying to hurt people really isn't a good look. It's not cute. And it's a very negative reflection on who we are if we do that. So the last point is to keep up with texting etiquette. So like we also touched on before is being polite and even as simple as like nowadays including emojis and GIFs and things like that in your text, that can really help change how your message comes off. So sometimes adding those makes a huge difference and it avoids lots of like conflict and misunderstanding. So putting a little bit of effort in that sense, I think is really nice. And I think it avoids, a lot of issues that could arise from not doing that. So yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of the tips. Does anyone have any thoughts or anything that they want to share before we wrap up today? No? Let's see. Okay. Great. Well, I just want to thank you guys for all your participation today, sharing all of your thoughts. You guys are awesome. And we will see you at the next lesson, which is going to be next Friday at the same time at 2 p.m. Eastern. Okay, guys, have a great day. Take care, everyone.